For me, it was a self-imposed pressure.
Was I under pressure? No.
Yeah, they're under pressure. Everyone's under pressure.
OTB AM's Pressure Rankings with Gillette.
And the big pressure.
Yeah, so this is our weekly spot where we rank the pressure that everybody's feeling. Number 3 this week is Pep. I'm not going to tell everybody what it is, but it's okay. Well, we just told everybody because we put it up on the screen there. So it's Pep Guardiola, the GAA, and David De Gea is number 1. He must be feeling a lot of pressure this week. We're going to start with Pep. Why is Pep under pressure, Owen?
If you post a video of you jubilantly celebrating in front of Sky Sports News, announcing your decision to take part in that competition, you automatically put yourself under pressure to win the competition with which you're celebrating your mere existence in. I think at the weekend, Manchester City showed once again why they can be susceptible to these sort of defeats in these sort of competitions. Spoiler, Champions League is this sort of competition where on one night your hopes and dreams can be eroded and shattered. Manchester City, I feel, are far better suited to the 38-game streak of Premier League football. Wasn't the case this year, and in actual fact, as the season wore on, it got to a situation where you started to think about Manchester City and how bloody brilliant they sometimes can be, and how these results have happened to them quite regularly throughout this Premier League year in particular. And you just wonder if when they go behind in games, or when the going gets tough in these games, they don't have another gear to go to actually try and resurrect these results, because they always operate at such a high level. And you look at what's happened over the course of the last couple of weeks in Spain, you look at Real Madrid, and Jerry, you start to think, is this tie with Real Madrid done? Is this progression to the next round a gimme, which we all thought it was
it is absolutely
a month ago?
No, it's not. It's not done. It's not done until, especially when you're Man City, it's not done until the bloodied corpse is lying there and the body has convulsed and the last bit of life is out of it. And that's Man City have been spooked by what has happened in the Champions League over the last number of seasons, and Pep Guardiola must be personally spooked by what's happened to him in the Champions League over the last number of seasons, stretching all the way back to his time at Bayern Munich as well. I think you're right that they have to feel like they're under pressure. The main problem seems to be that when Aguero's not on the team, particularly in these big games, they don't have a goal scorer with ice in his veins. Looking at the chances that they created yesterday, they created enough chances to go through, but whatever it is about these big games, they just haven't had somebody who's cool enough to take their time when they need to take their time, or just to get the shot on target. Laporte's shot was a beautiful shot. You're like, wow, that would have nestled in the top corner. It would have looked amazing. There was a Sterling chance, fizzes past the post as well, and you're like, what's going on here? But it happens to them in these big games so much that they must be very concerned about what's going to happen in the Champions League.
Is there a pressure as well with Mikel Arteta here, and the fact that Pep now realises that you leave one of your coaches go, not that you leave him go, you can't keep somebody as an assistant forever. Somebody will always want to go on and manage. That the more these assistants go through a club that Manchester City is managing at, the more information about Pep Guardiola that will be available to everybody. Now, maybe that's complete nonsense, because Manchester City are one of the most watched clubs in world football and everybody knows the game plan anyway. But maybe not. Maybe that adds a little bit more to this thing, where Pep Guardiola is looking over at his old protege and thinking to himself, God, this is a different situation now where I really need to reinvent a few elements of how we play. But it's interesting that you talk about the chances that Manchester City create. It did seem after they go 2-0 down at the weekend, and maybe after they go 1-0 down, that the chances start to dwindle a little bit. I know they had a good few chances in the third quarter of the game, but it didn't really seem that after Arsenal went 2-0 up, that this free-flowing attack of Manchester City would actually be able to arrest the situation. Maybe that was just me, but despite the fact that they had all the possession, you kind of felt that possession wasn't going to turn into significant chances in the way that perhaps Liverpool did during the week. That felt like far more of a freak result than Saturday night did, I think. I think Saturday night you can make a case that Arsenal did really well to actually get the win, whereas in the Liverpool situation it was a bit of a freak on Jurgen Klopp's part. When you have earmarked the Champions League as the be-all and end-all of the club, there is always going to exist a necessity for you to go and win that thing. But after the week that they've had and being thrown out of it and getting back into it and the celebrations from Pep and him telling everybody to apologise for how they've spoken about them, before we've got the reasoned decision, let me remind you, you've definitely put yourself into crosshairs of a lot of criticism at the very least, but also of a fairly humbling moment where Real Madrid to beat you. But then it's not over. Then it is for the next season of Champions League football and the season after that, the seasons with which they have won the CAS decision over the last couple of weeks to merely be in these competitions. That is when the things continue. And if they lose to Real Madrid and get knocked out of this season's Champions League, imagine how the expectation then ratchets up from the City hierarchy over their following years.
The other thing is, it's not like they were resting players. Like, that's their team. You know, they're not like, it's not like the Man United situation where they can at least go, look, we're trying to qualify for something here. He needs to get those players playing really well. They need to be in form for the big games that are coming. And we just haven't seen them, apart from the game against Liverpool, but sure, Liverpool were tipsy.
Also, Liverpool were quite good that day, and I think the result was a little bit of a freak. The scoreline was a freak. The result wasn't a freak. Manchester City deserved to win that game. The severity with which Liverpool got beaten that day, well, maybe it was down to a little bit of tipsiness, but I actually think there was a bit of a freakiness to do with that result as well. Let's face it, Liverpool were quite good before they went behind in that game. And maybe there's a situation there as well where Manchester City can find that extra gear against somebody like Liverpool. Maybe they'll be fine against Real Madrid because they'll see Zidane on the sideline, they'll see the superstars going up against them, and they'll get to that level. But when they look at lowly Arsenal at the weekend and they're like, why isn't our magic beating these guys? How are we finding ourselves 2-0 down? That's perhaps where they struggle, because it's hard for them to find that other gear when they're so brilliant the vast majority of the time.
Bear in mind, they have not won the Champions League if they beat Real Madrid. There's a possibility they beat Real Madrid and still manage to stutter their way out of the competition, because there are some other good teams on their side of the draw. Let's talk about the GAA. Who's feeling the pressure here? Is it John Horan? Is it Croke Park? Is it where is the pressure point coming at the moment?
Well, the easy answer here is to say that it's the government, but like, how much realistically is what the GAA is saying going to put added pressure on the government, considering there are a multitude of sectors who are asking questions and asking for a little bit more leeway when it comes to the movement through the phases? So the pressure you probably have to say it lies with the GAA to a point at the moment. So you had John Horan coming out on Friday morning saying that he would call on the Taoiseach and the Taoiseach to act now and to make a special case for the GAA to be able to have 500 people at club grounds. Now, how much is that actually going to rest at the door of Micheál Martin? Like, is there going to be a special meeting? Is there going to be a special case of lobbying that happens here that allows the pressure to transfer onto them? I'm not sure it will. Like, there will be lobbying within the GAA, though, and John Horan will be asked to make his case again. Tom Ryan will be asked to make a case that the August 10th date is pushed forward from the GAA's perspective. But if that happens, then you are also heaping a load of added extra pressure onto yourself as well, that you have to then add 300 extra people to every match day scenario, but do it safely. If it is said that, all right, GAA, go ahead and have your special case, well, you better be sure that it is done in a safe manner. You better be sure that there isn't going to be a cluster of cases at a match. Like that. This is the sort of high wire act that they negotiate in if they try and get a special case to have 500 people at outdoor events.
So last week we had the chairman of a club in Cork saying, you know, I really don't want it to be the case, but we may well end up having a death as a result of this, should we have any activity. And we have the president and Peter Fitzpatrick, county board chairman of Louth, saying, let's have more people at the games. Like, there is a broad church of opinions here. And I think it's natural that there would be a broad church of opinions, given that nobody actually knows what is going to happen over the next few weeks in terms of the R number is up again, the infection rate among the coterie of players and the age group of the players has spiked over the last couple of weeks, the last month, given that people have started to re-engage in activities. And the call for personal responsibility is not necessarily something that we in Ireland have always followed through on. We like to go and have a good time. We like to gather. We like to have house parties. We like to go to the pub. And so I don't know what's going to happen here. I would be hasten slowly would be the advice. Like, if you rush to 500, very hard to go back to 200 after that. What's going to happen is, if you rush to 500 and it's a disaster, no reason that it would be, but if it was, then everything is going to be postponed totally. Whereas actually, an extra couple of weeks of this, is it really that bad?
And if you rush to 500 as well, you automatically you magnetize criticism for something to go wrong. It could be a poor political move as well for them to take that risk, unless they're extremely confident that things are going to be okay. Like, it's interesting that you talk about personal responsibility there, because that was really the theme of Colm O'Rourke's column yesterday in the Sunday Independent, and he seems to have changed his stance a little bit on this, which I actually think is kind of understandable given everything we've seen over the last little while. There has been a mood change from phase 2 plus to where we're at now in the country, where we're seeing clusters of cases once again, where we are seeing a spike in infection rates in young people. I think obviously there's been, the younger generation have got lambasted from many corners for not doing their bit. At the same time, is there a difference between those people who are going to gather in their dozens at a house party and transmitting cases of COVID, and those who actually go out and play club football or hurling? There probably is a bit of a difference there. And maybe actually going back to our initial belief that young people going out into an outdoor situation and playing games is safe, maybe we should be clinging to that a little bit more. But then it's beyond that. It's the supporters. I think that's the idea of playing Gaelic football or hurling is not actually the main issue here. The issue is way beyond that, is the people gathering and actually watching this. Now, do you look at what's actually happening outside of grounds and people standing beside their cars and not socially distancing or not wearing masks and saying, well, that's the byproduct if you actually lock them out of the GAA grounds, let them in and at least let the COVID officer space them out inside in the grounds? Well, I don't know. That'll be one of the counter arguments that perhaps John Horan could make. Yeah, so I think somebody was making the point yesterday, it might have been on the paper, it might have been Paul Rouse, that we could be dealing with this all the way through to 2022. Let's gather information slowly as opposed to rushing to 500 and not learning all the lessons about what it is like to deal with 200 and then ramp it up. Like, we have quite a while ahead of us to deal with this. There's a few interesting points. Michael Burney has the back of the Indo today. Donegal club Naomh Colmcille suspended all club activities on Friday night to prevent the potential spread of COVID-19 after playing Glack, one of the affected Derry clubs, the previous weekend in a challenge game. Donegal officials later commented that they hadn't been advised by the club whether or not they have actual or suspected cases. Drama in Mayo as a football league tie between Lewisburg and Bala was cancelled on Saturday, with Lewisburg admitting that they had acted in an overly cautious way to a confirmed COVID-19 case in the region. I think being overly cautious, not the worst thing at the moment, right? There is a global pandemic on out there. No, it is, but it is interesting that the personal responsibility has now been taken to that level. It's encouraging for sure that people have taken it this seriously. And like, this is a situation, I think in the Lewisburg Ball situation, it was a case in the locality, wasn't it, rather than a case in the team. Right. So that's the level that Lewisburg have gone to because of the advice they've been given. So, like, I think if you're trying to go for caution there, that is an encouraging enough case, I would have thought. That, you know, like, it's very easy to kind of throw out, well, the GAA just want extra people into the grounds because they want to get all the possible money they possibly can. Whereas this decision in Mayo would show that, no, there will come a time when money is not the be-all and end-all. They realise that they can give up their gate receipts because there might be a chance of having an infection in the community. All right, what's at number one on our list? It's David De Gea. It had to be David De Gea. Of all the people in the world feeling pressure right now, David De Gea is top of the list in sports terms. I can't see the case for keeping him anymore. I can't make the case. The only case is that you don't want to completely devalue an asset you have, and that you're hoping some mug somewhere is going to pay you some money to take him off your wage bill. But I don't know who that is. Yeah. Okay, so the value in keeping him obviously is because it might be difficult to actually get back all the money you spent on him. I can't see a reason to keep him in the starting team. I'm with you on that. I think that Dean Henderson needs to be brought back in and given the opportunity. I think he has the potential to be a level above both David De Gea and Sergio Romero. In the short term, Romero probably needs to get his chance. We spoke about this with Kenny earlier on, but what sort of a message does it send to people if you can put in those sort of performances and be kept in the team. I get the idea of trusting your goalkeeper, but this is not new news that David De Gea's forearms have suddenly turned to jelly. They've been jelly-like for quite some time. He has lost something. This is like the goalkeeper's versions of the yips. It's actually kind of tragic to watch, and you feel nervous every time you see a ball hurtling towards David De Gea. It's a terrible destruction of a self-confidence that we're witnessing right now, and I have my doubts if he'll ever be able to get it back, because how many goalkeepers in recent times have had these nightmarish scenarios and managed to pull it back quickly? Of course, there will be exceptions to the rule, but as we said earlier, like Joe Hart is like a very worrying case study if you're David De Gea looking across the city. Like when he was ditched as well, there was no way that confidence was getting fixed. And if David De Gea plays the way he is playing at the moment, no matter what side of the fence you're on in this debate, there is no way he won't be ditched. He will have to be dropped at some point.
So, okay, what do? Do you... Champions League qualifications on the line. And the difference, we've seen the difference a goalkeeper can make, especially a goalkeeper at the yips. If you're playing against Man United in the next two games, you're trying a few pot shots. You're certainly hitting the near post when you're through one-on-one. It's like, oh, I'm going to hit near post. You're not very good at the near post there, David, are you? I kick it straight at you, and good chance you're going to throw it in. If you're Solskjaer, do you make that change now? Or do you think, well, actually, we're going to be okay in these last two games? Leicester are in free fall, and this is grand. I'll have my full team back midweek. We'll be fine. And you hope that De Gea plays okay to the point where you can send him on loan to somebody in Spain next season, and he has a good season in Spain, and you try and get some of your money back that way, because actually it is an asset that if you don't get back, you won't be able to use that money to buy somebody you really need to buy.
They would try and get some sort of cash for him. Like, I don't think it'll be as desperate as the Alexis Sanchez case. I don't think it's at those dire straits, but it could get there eventually. Like what I would say when it comes to the final few games of the season is that word hope that you used. You are hoping for David De Gea to not mess up for the team. Whereas with Sergio Romero, you've kind of got somebody who has done well. There is not really a whole pile of hope with Sergio Romero. You know that there's a very good chance he'll get you a clean sheet. He will save you in a couple of precarious situations. He's not going to be Ederson or Alisson.
You're saying put him in now. You're saying unequivocally, just so we're clear, you're saying change the goalkeeper, take De Gea out now, today. That's it. This, in training, A versus B, De Gea's with the Bs. I
think if we're living in a world where you can sack your manager with 2 games to go, you can change your goalkeeper for 2 games to go, especially when your goalkeeper can't save shots at the near post.
Okay.
Throw in Sergio Romero for the last 2 games. I think his record has been consistent enough. The only issue, of course, is match practice and how sharp he is, which is a fairly important attribute for a goalkeeper. The thing is, if he is going well in training, if he looks as sharp as De Gea in training, and it's a kind of a tight call, you start Sergio Romero because that confidence is invaluable at this point. Okay. Immediately what happens is that you devalue the asset from De Gea. I don't know what De Gea is suddenly worth. Like, is he worth nothing? Are you able to get nothing in terms of a transfer fee for David De Gea? Probably not at the moment. You'd probably be able to get something for him. But if he plays well in the last 2 games of the season, then you're like, oh, he recovered. And that's the story that you tell. And that's the story his agent tells. And somehow you try and get him out in the summer. That's assuming that they want rid of him and they don't think, like Kenny thinks, that actually he's going to be their goalkeeper next season. I think it's a big leap from Kenny to think he's going to be their goalkeeper next season, isn't it? Like, and again, just like I hate to labour this point, but sometimes there are trends in the game that you need to follow, and the 2 best clubs in England have had a fairly similar conversation to this in the recent past, and the trend has been you don't back the keeper who is failing very long. Of course, publicly, you will come out and say, of course, we back the goalkeeper. Privately, you've got to be looking for a replacement. Manchester United are almost in an easier situation than Liverpool and Manchester City, where they have the replacement. They don't need to go out and spend 70 million quid on a goalkeeper. They have a 23-year-old guy who is on the way up, who's had a very, very good couple of seasons, and is 100% deserving of his chance at Manchester United. So all those things considered, And to say David De Gea is under pressure is an understatement. You can almost see the end of the road with him, at this point. Like his contract goes until 2023, so that's the kind of complication here. It's not just a one-season fix. You can't just get to 2021 with this guy at the end of that season.
And that's why I'm asking you, like, if you take him out of the team now, there's no chance of you really realising any value for that. So there's the business case and there's the sporting case, and the sporting case is overwhelming. The business case is try and recoup something for this so that your whole team can be better next year. If you get 15 to 20 million for David De Gea now, would you take it?
That is a tough one. 30 million you would. 30 million you take.
I'd take 5, Owen. I would
15,
take 5.
Like, I mean, we're saying here all the reasons why David De Gea is not going to make it again at Manchester United. There could also be a rejuvenation when he leaves the club.
There could be, but I don't care about that. It's like his form at my club is gone. His confidence.
And that's why you're selling him. But if you're another club looking to buy him, this is my point, that you might actually be able to say, well, that could be worth 20 million plus offer, up to 30 million potentially. Like the Joe Hart situation where he actually continued to get worse after he left. That's probably unlikely, but it is still a huge warning sign to everybody out there who's considering actually signing De Gea. But with De Gea, he might feel more comfortable if he goes back to Spain. Perhaps the pressure of not being at Old Trafford. It was very strange watching it last night because he was in an empty stadium. Even there wasn't the kind of sense of dread all around the ground. And I wonder if that's almost more awkward for the goalkeeper, where you can actually hear the groans of your teammates rather than the groans of the crowd.
I'm trying to find what Transfer Market says value is. His highest value is 63 million in 2018. They're saying his current value is 36 million. If somebody offered me 36 million for David De Gea, I'd be like, woohoo! Get that fax machine working, baby. Right, so that is number 1 on the Gillette pressure rankings this week is David De Gea, and it wasn't even close. I'm not going to lie to you. We didn't have to. We didn't have the boffins cranking the machines too long for that one after the performance there. So, right, David De Gea is number 1 on our pressure rankings from Gillette this week. If you want to suggest anything for that, 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Now,